How's it going? It is currently 9:20 p.m. on April the 12th of 2026. And if everything goes well, then in just over 2 weeks' time, on April the 28th, the fourth Return to Life album will hit digital shelves. This is a pretty long time coming, not gonna lie. And much like I did with the first two records, I wanted to just do a video where I self-indulge a little bit and, talk about the music. That's something that I think I'm at least somewhat qualified to do. Whether I'm good at it or not is up to you. But I will try to at least keep this video somewhat focused. I'm not going to use the word concise because I'm still going to be here for 2 hours plus. Because basically I'm going to start with a bit of a preamble to kind of discuss the timeline of the album and the various events that led up to it, as well as like any overarching lore. And then go track by track. I'll be starting and stopping and kind of talking about any notable sections that may or may not have some interesting tidbit of information. There's two main reasons that I'm making this video. One is that I would like personally to have a time capsule of, where I was as a musician at this exact moment in time. And for that to be, potentially a reference for the future, as far as like if I want to, think about what was going on in my head when I wrote a specific part, I can always go back to it. And reason number two is that if anyone ever asks me, hey, what does this song mean? I can be like, watch the video. That's basically it. That's the entire point of the video. So yeah, let's get to it. I don't want to waste a whole lot of time. This is already the second take at the intro. And I don't know how many takes I'm gonna have to go through to get through the whole album, because the last thing I want to do is get sidetracked and just talk about, irrelevant shit. This is also your warning. This is not going to be a very PG video, so don't go into it with that level of expectation. There will also be like no meaningful video content. For the intro, I'm probably just going to have the album art, and then as the songs go on, I might have it replaced with my view of what I'm seeing on Fubar right now. But even that, like, realistically doesn't matter a whole lot because it's just, Fubar. Anyway, one thing that kind of needs to be said before we get started proper is that there's a reason why I didn't make one of these for Esoteric, and it's that it would defeat the purpose of that album. I feel like, or not I feel like, it's by design, that the story of that album would be a little bit obscure to people that don't need to know what it is. And ultimately, just in hindsight, without, talking about the album too much, Esoteric is a reflection of a pretty bad period of my life. Like, I want to say that 2022 was probably the worst year of my life so far. And for that reason, there is a lot of things that either precede or immediately follow the making of that album that I don't have a lot of memory of. There's a ton of demos that I found either on my old computer or on my phone that I listen to and go, when did I make this? Why did I do this? How did I do this? Generally that sort of thing. And one of those periods of time is around the end of 2022 and the start of 2023. which is immediately following me, releasing Esoteric and starting to work on new music. And around that time period, the various songs and demos and things that I wrote, none of which ended up making the cut for what ended up being Only Then. They were all very largely in the same vein musically as Esoteric was. There was a lot of the same style and musical direction. It was the same 7-string guitar. Largely I kept things unchanged from that album, and I think the big reason why was because it was just convenient. I already had this session set up, and it was pretty easy for me to just tweak a couple sliders on, the guitar plugin and change a couple of the drum samples and be like, all right, it's the new tone. But one thing that I already knew immediately at that point in time was that I didn't want this album to have a predetermined direction or concept. All 3 of the first Return to Life albums are bound by that constraint of I have a story that I want to tell. And in my mind, the pros of that almost outweigh the cons, because the idea that, a particular track is going to fit into a particular point in a story or a narrative is actually quite useful to me as far as deciding on the actual direction of the music. And so without that, it was actually sometimes quite hard for me to just, make my mind up as far as, well, what do I want this song to be? But ultimately, I feel like it was a much needed breath of fresh air, and a useful experiment to me to figure out if I can make music without a guide, if I can really just make songs as individual tracks without having to try to shoehorn them into a concept. And I say this as a bit of a liar, because out of the 10 songs that are on Only Then, and strangely enough, it's my 3rd consecutive album with 10 songs on it. I don't know why this keeps happening. This wasn't premeditated. Out of those 10 songs, about 8 of them follow the general theme of shit that pisses me off. 2 of them don't fall into that category, and I'll get to them as we get to them. But the majority of the album is largely just me getting things off of my chest. And that was another thing that I had greatly benefited from, having decided to not make a concept album, because I could actually, write music about things that I cared about without having to commit a whole album to like one specific thing that I cared about. And so I could cover quite a lot of bases with the various topics that were chosen for this piece of music. So yeah. One other thing that I'll go back to, just because it's kind of important context, is that while this didn't necessarily show itself in Esoteric, early 2022 and maybe late 2021 was a period in my life where I was kind of entering a new decade as far as musical influences were concerned. There's a very strong list of bands that made the 2010s for me. Bands that I very strongly looked up to, and either consciously or subconsciously borrowed a lot of my musical influence from. That, during and now after COVID they're still there. They still make up the backbone and the heart of what it is that I do as a musician, and still even now the music that I listen to. But early COVID was a bit of an explorative time for me, where I was trying to really branch out and try to, hear more of the world as much as, I was able to at the time. And so two important bands, even three important bands, entered my life around this time. One of them, from memory, I think kind of, at least to some degree, appeared musically in Esoteric, which was Deftones. Ironically, I hadn't really done a deep dive into the Deftones discography until within the last 5 years. But around that winter of 21-22 was the time that I had heard Loathe for the first time. And it was my second time ever hearing Viltjarta. I had heard some songs off of Mestaden at some point in the mid-2010s. And I remember hearing them and not particularly thinking that they were, bad music or anything. It just wasn't music that was for me at the time. I was in a bit of a position where I needed genuinely years of trying to get into bands like Periphery. And so a band like Viltjarta, which did kind of Periphery-y things, but on some sort of stimulant, that I didn't have space in my life for that at the time. But it was after Mestaden und Erwarten released that both that album and Loathe's I Let It In and It Took Everything entered a very, very inner circle for me as far as music that genuinely changed my perception of music at large and changed how I approach both hearing and writing music. And those two influences were kind of the big drivers, as well as Deftones, I would say, that drove, I don't want to say the writing behind Only Then, but drove me to the particular vibe that the album kind of sat on. And ironically, the most important part of the equation was me getting a new guitar. So 2022, I had spent that year largely unemployed. And by the end of the year, I had moved back in with my parents. And this was in the Barrie area, if you're familiar with, the greater Toronto area and the immediately surrounding towns and cities. And it was in early 2023 when I'd finally found a local gig, local enough, and I started having, money again. And the two large purchases that I made that summer were a new guitar and a new computer. And they were both actually quite significant as far as their effect on this album. The computer actually mattered a lot because I built an entirely new PC from scratch. And for me, migrating my entire musical environment as far as, the DAW, all the plugins, all the presets, and yada yada, is such a massive headache that honestly, by the time that I got everything set up again on the new machine, and this was around, I want to say, August of 2023, I said, fuck this. I'm starting everything from scratch. I don't care about importing any of my old demos or projects. I don't care about, copying anything. Let's just start from a pure, ground zero, clean slate and see what happens. And that's part of, I want to say that's the biggest reason why this album sounds so different from the previous ones, because there really is no reused tricks or techniques or just anything really. Everything was brand new and me figuring things out given all of the experience that I have in my life, which technically isn't really a whole lot, but I still think that this album sounds a whole lot better than Pursuit does. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd like to believe that. And then the second purchase that mattered a lot was the new guitar, and I had wanted a guitar that could tune as low as something like Loathe or Viltjarta, but it was through it being almost impossible to find a good baritone guitar in stock anywhere, and B, through me having this inherent desire to be a bit of a contrarian that I bought a bass 6 instead and just decided to play it like a guitar. And I mean, this also isn't like a particularly niche thing to do. There's tons of people that have the Squier bass 6 that they write stupid, low-tuned riffs on. I'm not the first to, sink into this swamp of unintelligible notes. But the guitar that I got is, at least to my understanding, not the most popular one for this specific purpose. And it was the Schecter Hellcat 6. It took months for it to get ordered from Germany and for that to actually arrive, because obviously nobody here in Canada has one of these things in stock. But by the time that guitar arrived, this was also around August of 2023. And so the first music that was written for this album was in September of 2023. And everything was done absolutely from scratch. I don't quite remember if it was an immediate decision for me to write every single song on this album on that guitar, or whether it was something that just kind of manifested a couple songs in. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I just make the whole album like this? Why don't I, ground myself in one instrument and see what I can do with this one instrument? And so all of the guitar parts are written and recorded on the bass 6. And I do say this with an asterisk because there's a couple lead sections. I think there was one on track 3, and I forget if there's any more anywhere else, that I had actually tracked on a normal 7-string guitar because the timbre just sounded better. There's a very kind of unique tone that is acquired through a single coil bass instrument being pushed through guitar amps and played like a guitar that sort of are unavoidable. Oh, hello, Silver. Cat's yawning right now. There's a bunch of characteristics that are kind of just intrinsic to the instrument that, unfortunately, there's a couple instances where I think I made the decision to, okay, let's just track it on a different guitar to make things easier. It's also a bit of a pain in the ass to play complicated parts, although my parts are not very complicated, on a 30-inch scale length, because that shit just hurts your hands. It really does. Yeah, that's basically the gist of it. The demos. So this album was written during something around like a 9-month span, if I do math correctly, which I probably don't anymore, of September of 2023 through May of 2024. And they were all written in the exact same environment. This was all written in that basement that I lived in at the time. I moved, for context, we'll get to this in the timeline, but around September of 2024 is when I moved to where I currently am, which is downtown Toronto. But all of the music was written back up north in the Barrie area. And the original demos were all tracked on a pedal board. And one of the things that happened was, after I'd written the last track, I realized that I wasn't necessarily happy with the mix. Like, by the time I was getting to the end of the demos, I was like, okay, these are really just demos. Like, I'm going to fix all of these things. And it's something that I didn't necessarily do with the first 3 albums to a degree where I could listen to them back and be like, I'm genuinely satisfied with the mix and every detail of the mix. And so for the first time, I decided, okay, I'm gonna, finish the demos and then go back and clean everything up and redo, as much as I can, with the aim of being truly, truly satisfied with the finished product. And so that's why there was such a long period of time, basically 2 full years, between the music being written and the music being released. But so because I tracked the guitar parts through a pedal board, I wasn't able to get a clean DI that I could, manage to the capacity that I wanted. And so that's why I had to, retrack all of the parts, get a clean DI, and, sort all that shit out later. The primary guitar plugin, like the one that all the rhythm tones are from, is Fortin Nameless Suite. And then there's a bunch of leads and like secondary rhythm guitars that are through Archetype Gojira. That's basically, the laydown of the guitar parts. I don't think there's anything that uses not those two plugins for guitar tones. Same as always, I'm using Reaper. One of the main changes that I made between Esoteric and Only Then is a different drum plugin. I had actually owned GGD Invasion before I'd owned the P4 kit, which is the kit that I had done all the drum parts for Esoteric with. But genuinely, I am such a fan of the samples on the Invasion kit that is to date still my favorite drum plugin to use for metal. I've used some other kits for various other reasons, but as far as just like doing my music, Invasion is just the best. And I think that if and when I start making music for the next album, it's going to continue using Invasion. And until I hear something that genuinely makes me go, this might actually be better, I'm gonna stick to it. Such a good plugin. Let's see, what else is worth mentioning? The bass parts were all done originally with just easy bass. But I think the distorted bass was then redone on, I think it's Autohome bass. But that might not be a plugin that exists. It's some like Buster Autohome related bass plugin that is just there for like the super low notes during the really noisy, messy sections, just to give it a little bit more grit. And all of that is going through the Neural DSP Dark Glass plugin. That's bass tones for you. And the rest, like all of the various synths and noises and sounds, that's me just using a whole array of various things that I managed to get my hands on. I know that FabFilter Twin 2 is behind a lot of it. I know there's a bunch of Native Instruments stuff, which is a nightmare. But it's all like, this is kind of like superficial stuff that's not necessarily important to discuss. Let's see, what else is worth talking about? The artwork. The artwork for this album, it's kind of a funny story. Not even really a story, but it's impossible to tell. You cannot actually figure this out just by looking at it, but that is the back of my old car. At the time, I was driving a 2010, I want to say, Nissan Sentra, and it started rusting real bad right around the license plate on the back. And so this was like the rust spot on the back of the car, right next to where the license plate is, with just the saturation cranked to 1 billion, and then the colors kind of all shifted towards the red hue. And it's also upside down. The original image is the other way around. That's the art. And I debated putting text over it, but this time around I was like, you know what, screw it. Let's just have an image, and let's let people, interpret it as they will. I thought it was an interesting artistic choice to just have that be like that since the beginning. Like, that photo was taken sometime in 2023, and I want to say before I even wrote any of the music. And it sort of withstood the test of time as far as what I want the cover to be. I haven't wanted anything else to be the cover. The album title I didn't actually have in my head until the music was long done. Because this wasn't a concept album, because there wasn't a preemptively decided story, in my head this was just album 4 forever. And it was only when I'd finished the music and I'd done all the lyrics that I was like, you know what, why not have it be a lyric from the album? And that is when Only Then kind of arose as something that had immediately sparked an interest in my mind. I didn't want to spend a long time on this decision. Like, I wanted to just kind of feel what is that one lyric line from the album that stands out to me as like maybe what the album feels like. And that's what I chose. I know that it's largely like a very nondescript title. It's not going to tell you what the album even sounds like. Like, to an outsider that has never heard my music before, the band name and the album name don't mean anything. Like, you are going to get zero direction as far as what this music is from those two things. And even the song titles, there really isn't any direction as far as like, okay, this is probably this is probably a metal album. But yeah, that's basically Only Then. And it was, so once I'd finished the music, I took a couple months to kind of cleanse the palate, so to speak. I didn't work on music. I didn't even listen to this album. And it was only around the summer of 2023 that I had decided to, start the reworking process of this music. And that's when also I went through the move. That's when I was just genuinely really, really busy with life stuff. Like, for me, just getting everything set up the way that I wanted it to. It wasn't really until the winter between 24 and 25 that I'd gotten back on the horse as far as, redoing the guitar parts, the vocal parts. And I made it about halfway into the album. I made it to track 6. I made it to In the Grand Scheme of Things, until I realized that I never tabbed that song out, and that now I'd be trying to learn, at this point already 1-year-old guitar parts entirely by ear. That song just generally had a lot of various issues that I wasn't a big fan of fixing at the time. And so, having kind of hit this wall, I said, fuck this. I put the music down, and through some other combination of me actually finding some sort of joy in working on other music, as well as the, busyness of the year. I do live alone, so like I got shit to do, and I have a job. So it wasn't until really the spring of 2026 that I really decided, okay, enough's enough. It really is time to finish this fucking album and to have it not be a problem anymore for me. I didn't want to have this, at this point, 2-year-old piece of work that I still hadn't released because I was just being, depressed or lazy or busy or some combination of those 3 elements. And so I basically spent around 2 weeks in the spring of this year just holed up inside and grinding all the songs out. And that's when the mix took its final form, and that's when all of the arrangements were done, and that's when all the final guitar parts were tracked, and that's when the final vocal takes were done. And now it's done. And it's being released on April 28th because that is a fairly significant date to me. I'll get there when we have to get there. And yeah, this is a general, I want to say largely comprehensive lore behind the album. I want to say I think I covered pretty much everything that I want to. I'm gonna get into the individual tracks now and see if there's anything that I want to discuss about them. Before we get into them, all of the songs, with a bit of a minor asterisk, the songs were all written in order. Like, the way that they appear on the album is the order that they were written in. An exception is Silver Tears. That song I had started much, much sooner, but it took me a long time to finish that song, and so that's why it shows up on the end of the album. And also, the final track had like a version 1 that was scrapped and then redone from scratch into, the version 2, which is the final track on the album. So basically the first 8 tracks are written in the exact order that they appear in. Tracks 9 and 10 have origins earlier in the album cycle, but were finished in that order as well. Okay, so Reflection. This is the one song on the album that had a title change between its first version and its final version. And it is one of the two tracks that don't fall into the basket of shit that make me mad. In fact, this is a very deliberate continuation of the story from Esoteric. And the one thing that I will mention is that Esoteric, and this is like, I want to say somewhat easy to decipher, is largely told through the perspective of two characters. And this particular song is their final dialogue. Like, these two characters will never appear in my music again. And this was kind of like me laying that story to rest and giving it, I think, the proper send-off that it deserved. Because honestly, without getting into it too much, Esoteric was a very, very personal album. And I kind of had it in me to do a personal song as a continuation of the personal album. And to finally kind of tie up some loose ends, bookend the book and whatever. I'm running out of fucking metaphors. And the irony is that the second line of lyrics is, and the metaphors have all been played out. Wake Up, It's Season 2 is literally just a straight up reference to, it's that same story again, but it's part 2, just so you're aware. And yeah, so this piano section at the very, very start was the very, very first thing that I wrote. Like, I started playing around with some octavey thing, and I was like, what can I do with this little octavey thing? I played around with some effects and yada yada, and landed on this melody, which never appears again. It's only in this little 30-second prelude that this little... that little melody appears. That's the only time you ever hear it. I never went back to it again. I can't explain why. What follows is the most basic, like Meshuggah-esque, formulaic-ass riff humanly possible that has a motif. In this case, it's the da-da-da, which happens 3 times. And then there's either 3 eighth notes behind it, there's 2 eighth notes behind it, or there's 4 eighth notes behind it, and then there's a tail to make it fit into, I think, the 6/4 that this section is in. So it is just chugging that helps you kind of establish this is the new sound, this is the new tuning, this is kind of what the new version of Return to Life is going to sound like. There is no real other purpose to it. For context, the top 5 strings on this album don't change, and it is only the 6th string that does change, from either just standard E tuning, so it's like 1 octave below standard, to drop D, or even a semitone lower to a C sharp. So this is one of the C sharp tracks. This is where the tuning is C sharp, A, D, G, B, E, 1 octave below standard. And it's kind of an extension of what I've done already before with, there's a bunch of songs in my discography where the low string is kind of fucked up. There's, I think, 3 songs on Pursuit where it's like this weird drop G sharp thing, but the bottom string is an F sharp. The Depths has the bends where everything is a half step below standard, but the 7th string is down to F. And so it's basically like an 8-string tuning if we skip the 7th. So I do a lot of weird shit with like messing with the lowest string and just seeing how low it goes. And that specific decision as to like what the low string is kind of dictates the various shapes that I end up using. Because the tuning is so weird, there really isn't a whole lot of, easy ways to work power chords into it. And so that's kind of what is avoided quite a bit when I make the decision to have it down on C sharp. So yeah, then we got this chugging section. That little guitar lick is not the same notes, but it's a very similar structure. Like I didn't do this on purpose, but it is basically the same pattern as a riff on the Depths title track. It has like a very similar do-do-do-do-do-do kind of vibe that just accidentally I landed on again, and that is just, I guess, one of the first of many callbacks. Something that this album does a lot, very deliberately, is call back to old material, because I kind of wanted this to be a culmination of my work so far. And so the one thing that you hear a lot, because again, this is an album, it's not just a bunch of singles, is lots of either lyrical or melodic callbacks to previous Return to Life stuff. And even in the context of the album, there's a bunch of ideas that appear more than once. We'll get to them as they arise. Very quickly into the first chorus. Something that is pretty evident just from this first verse and this first chorus is that I'm a lot more comfortable in my own skin as a vocalist. I still don't think I'm particularly good, but something that I will mention real quick is that there are no lead vocals with pitch correction on this album. All of the lead vocals are entirely just me left to my own devices. There's obviously other effects. There's obviously like the compression, the delay, and the reverb, and you know, sometimes there's some saturation and whatnot going on, but all of the vocal takes are just raw vocal takes as far as the pitch goes. I made that decision so that for the first time, really, you could hear all the flaws in my voice, while also hearing that I think between how I sounded on Pursuit and how I sound now, my vocals are one of those things that I'm genuinely like really happy with the improvement of. Obviously, I don't think I'm a good singer, but I think like objectively, there is a very, very strong growth between what I sounded like in 2017 and what I sound like now. And the first verse and that first chorus were me kind of subconsciously like going a little bit crazy, like doing some falsetto stuff, some vibrato stuff in the clean sung section, doing some more just like growling with like the delivery of the very first line on the album. Just things that I, you know, over time and with practice have gotten better at. So it was me like almost showing off in a way, but not in a way where it was very explicit. Like I didn't say, I'm gonna go crazy right now. It was just like me kind of, you know, cutting any strings that were left over from my previous music, and just kind of seeing what I can do with my voice now. And that's kind of how, you know, that particular section played out. This next section is very, the guitar part is very influenced by, I think it's Mastodon Oblivion. Very similar, like, left hand shape and right hand strumming in this little bit. One thing I'll also mention is that in the background, so this doesn't actually appear in the lyrics anywhere. You're not going to see this on any of the officially provided lyrics that I've submitted to the websites and whatnot. But there is a clean vocal in the background saying "Life passed us by" with the same cadence and melody and the words as a demo of mine titled, I think it's Phantom Pain, which is one of those mini demos that I made around late 2019, early 2020. They were kind of an extension of, you know, this is what album 3 was supposed to be before I had scrapped that whole idea and done Esoteric. And so this is a bit of a callback to material that no one has ever heard. I mean, it is up on like my YouTube and whatever, but this isn't going to be like a released song. But that was the first like deliberate callback. And it's only, what, 2 minutes into the first track? 1:32? Waning Rose, that's a callback to A Soul Deep Stare. Okay, I'll stop it here. Two important things to note. So this next lyric line is genuinely, I think, the one that I'm proud of the most because of the imagery behind it. And it's not one that took me like a long time to write, but it's one that I think about as being one of my, I think, two favorite vocal or lyric lines that I wrote for this record. And I guess let's take the cat out of the bag. If you if you somehow are 40 minutes or 41 minutes into this video, and if you somehow don't already know, I am transgender, and I started transitioning in 2022. In fact, my actual like HRT anniversary is literally April 28th, 2022, which is the reason why April 28th, 2026, which is the 4-year anniversary, the fourth album is releasing. And this particular line of lyrics is very much rooted in that. It's the mirror showing nothing, water falling onto no one, because like this is more of less of maybe like a self-reflection bit and more of like a generalized bit. But because ever since like basically the very, very beginning of COVID, I've been like fairly present in both real world but also online queer spaces. I feel like I have enough of a foundational knowledge to be able to speak about the queer and the trans experience to some capacity. And obviously I'm also talking from, my own experience to that capacity as well. And so one of the things that's generally, a lot of trans people go through is that body dysmorphia feeling, especially when they are confronted with like the very being of what their body is. And whether it's, looking at yourself in the mirror or having to stand in a shower and just confront like this is the piece of flesh that I'm confined to. A lot of people, I don't want to say myself included, like to a crazy extent, but I do identify with this at least to some degree, feel a very strong sense of like derealization or dehumanization, or have like this experience of who I'm looking at in the mirror right now isn't anyone, because that's not me. Or this, stream of water that I am standing on or standing under isn't falling onto anyone. And so in my mind, like, despite this being a very quickly appearing and disappearing lyric line, I'm really happy with this one. I had to kind of just point that out. And then the next section that follows that lyric line was the first time while writing any of the music for this album that I genuinely thought, like, damn, okay, this has potential. I essentially just took the same rhythm from the very, very start of the song, like when the guitars and the drums came in, and pivoted it from the C sharp minor that was in at the start into E major. And I played the exact same pattern, and I strummed some like ambient lead pattern over it. And because it sounded so good, I actually extended the section, like I stretched it to be twice as long as it was originally written to be. And it was after like listening to the way this like heavy bridge plays out and the way that it flows into this what I call the Cloud Kicker section. Because if you listen to Cloud Kicker, you're cool. You're very cool. This Cloud Kickery bit was the first time that I was listening back to like any, clip or demo of the music I was working on and going like, damn, I think I'm onto something here. So it's the first like musical element of this album that I'm genuinely really, really proud of. And now the piano is playing the same octave as before. There's still the G sharps that are above, but there's notes that are below that G sharp that now add a little bit more context. But that is the same octave-y bit, but there's I think like a D sharp and some other note in there. But the octaves are back. This little bit is the first section that I have a clip of. It's how I managed to backdate like when I wrote the song. I think September 23rd is when the first instance of this section comes up in my computer files. The first rhythm. This lyric line was changed. Not the lyrics, but the vocals. The melody here was changed between the demo and the final version. The original demo version was a little bit less interesting melodically. Like, it followed the same general idea, but it was more belted, and I felt in hindsight that was too cliche at that point. Like, I kind of had this tendency to whenever there's, a reprise of a section, to belt the section more. And so I almost decided very intentionally to not go that route again. And, instead of just screaming that same vocal part again, let's actually sing it even cleaner than before and just add some like cute little vocal flutters instead. That was a choice that I made when I was redoing some of the vocal takes. For context, there are a lot of takes. There's guitar takes, especially lead guitar takes, that are still from the original demos, so from 2023. And this includes vocals. A lot of the background vocals stayed the same. And then there's, guitar takes and vocal takes that are from 2026. And so there is genuinely something like 2.5 years worth of takes in this music. It's interesting to think about it that way. But yeah, this demo was a weird combination of, or this song has a strange combination of like very, very old and new guitar and vocal parts. Oh, Silver. What do you want, bro? What do you want, dude? Huh? What do you want? I know what you want. You want attention, bro. Something I guess I'll mention it now because I can, because he's being a problem. But during the writing process of Esoteric is when I got my first cat, the first cat that I personally adopted. And it is a blind tuxedo girl named Susan. And so the track... Oh, stop doing that. Stop doing that. The track, A Soul Deep Stare, is very much inspired by Susan and the way she looks at you when she looks at you, because she's not necessarily looking at you as much as it almost feels like she's looking into your soul. Silver, that's the name of the boy cat that I adopted in early 2023. His birthday is actually, he turned 3 like a week and a half ago or something like that. Oh, big yawn from the fella. He's the origin behind Silver Tears. So now both my cats have songs named after them. I also have both their names tatted. That's a small detail. We Were Always Here. So this is the first song, which is me being mad about shit. And very, very straightforward. If you read the lyrics, you can kind of figure this out. It is very much written about the trans genocide, mostly from the perspective of someone living in North America. And I am personally like blessed enough to be in the more sensible side of this continent, because a few hours south of me, shit starts to get really, really fucking weird. And I have a lot of friends that are either just queer or transgender that are in the States right now that for years now I've felt terrible for, because I genuinely don't know what to do to help. I don't have money that I can just donate, and beyond that, like, I can be, an ear or a shoulder, but I'm not able to like take refugees or anything. Like, I can, try to provide tips on like, what to do in certain situations, but the whole system and what's being done to, restrict people's access to life-saving care is crazy. And so this song is actually a bit of a spiritual successor to what The Contagion was. But it's a lot more direct. Like, it's very, very, persistent about what it is. There is a callback to The Contagion with the Call of the Weak, Ill-Prepared lyric that happens during the bridge. But this is the song where you take like this largely cheerful vibe of, the chorus of Reflection. It's the reason why I didn't go back and do like a reprise of the original rhythm and whatever. Like, I ended Reflection on that like high, good, happy, positive note from just like the major key resolution of the chorus. And now with a small little bit of, ambient noises and stuff, now we're getting into like the thick of it. Now we're getting into the weeds. This is when like shit goes from like a 4 to a 9 as like the shit's fucked scale for as far as the music goes. So this is the song that is like very, very Vild inspired as far as like how I wrote the riffs. Obviously, the last thing I want to do is do like a disingenuous Vild ripoff, and so I'm not doing like Thal here. But the way that the riffs were kind of put together and the way the drum parts are put together, this is probably the song that is the most Vild-like to me, as the author. If you have a different opinion, then so be it. But genuinely, this is the track that was written with Vild in mind. There's also an octave pedal on the guitar here. Painting fictional lines, another callback to the Contagion. One thing I mentioned now, this is like timeline things. This song was written like October-ish of 2023, and something that happened while writing this song, and specifically while doing the vocals for it, is I had a dentist appointment. I think this was like the last couple of days of September of that year. That I swear to fucking God, because there's no other conceivable way. So ironically, the job that I got at the start of 2023, I was fired from in August. So right around the time that like I had sunk all the money into like the hardware for this album, I lost that job. And so I wasn't going out. I was going out to go to the gym. But there is no fucking way that the throat infection that I got, cats are going crazy. There's no way that it didn't come from that dental appointment, because I had, seen the dentist, and within like 3-4 days, like that magic incubation period, I fell with like the most sick I think I've ever been. I don't know if it was the most sick I've ever been. I think the flu that I had a few months ago was worse. Like the winter flu of 25-26. Especially if you're from Toronto, you know what I'm talking about. This shit sucked. But as far as the effect that it had on my recovery and my voice, that was by far the worst I've ever had it. Because typically after 7 days, I'm almost back to normal. For me, like 7-8 days is like the timeline that I go from being sick to being like good to maybe at least go back to work. With this shit, the day 7 is when it started getting worse again. I felt terrible, and to the point where I couldn't even fucking speak. Like I would try and make noises. I canceled, so I was still teaching piano part-time at the time. I tried to do a lesson online, and I literally couldn't like make words happen. I was trying to speak and nothing would happen except for some air escaping my general throat area. And the recovery of when I was getting my voice back was when I had done a lot of the demo takes for this song. And I knew that like this would be a song that I would have to like redo a lot of takes for, but having done them again when my voice was healthy again, I realized that the song lost a lot of its character. And so a lot of the vocal takes are still from that time period when I was still very much recovering and when my voice would like break in very unpredictable ways. And so if you ever ask me to like now to like do a vocal performance of the song, I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know about this one, Chief. This one vocally is like by far the biggest challenge in the album. This song really like hurts to perform. especially the second half of it. And a lot of the screaming sections are me just pushing my voice to the absolute limit, making it just like break in a way that is very unhealthy. And so I don't know if I could ever vocally do the song justice again, but I kept a lot of these takes because it would keep the character. Also unrelated, but also related because it's coming up. This next guitar riff is another one of those sections that I was like really, really proud of when I finished it. Like this little Vildi guitar riff thing that's about to happen. Some fun split harmonies. Liars, Rapists, and Thieves is a lyric from Dillinger from Farewell Mona Lisa. This was, I remember specifically this vocal melody, I came up with it in the shower. This was just a bunch of like very Devin Townsend-y kind of chords. It is just like the major 6 into the minor 1. But it sounded like a very random Devin Townsend section. But I know that I sang this for the first time in the shower. That little piano lick, that do-da-doom, that's a callback to Beggar. Just, there was no reason for it other than it was just convenient for it to happen here. And then the entire bridge that follows afterwards is like rooted in G, which is also how the verses for Beggar go. So this whole section, like this little guitar, this little piano thing, the da 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 da, and then into the way the bridge is done. That is big Beggar callback. Also, before it happens, Walk Reverse is Between the Bird and Me, Dim Ignition, I think. What else? That's it for now, I think. And then yeah, the Call of the Weak, Ill Prepared. That's also that's the Contagion. There is a marimba back there, which is also like the same instrument that I used for Beggar in the da 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 doom da 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 doom da 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 doom da. Same instrument that I used for Beggar. This next singing part, that was done with my voice falling apart. I really like this section from a performance standpoint. You like jazz? I like jazz. Let's go. These are all demo takes. I retracked this whole section, and it sucked. And so this is also my sick voice doing this. This last guitar bit was just me with the metronome beating the fuck out of my guitar. And then whatever rhythm I accidentally strummed while just like jamming was the rhythm that I then did the drums for. Like that was just me like just playing the low E on the guitar, just fucking going like this piano bit is the thing that happened during the Devin Townsend part, the Here Lie Our Souls. Also, the little synth in the background is the same synth from the build-up into this track, but a semitone higher. I think it's like a B flat and a B in the intro, and now it's a B and a C. I think. Okay, Fake Beach with Plastic Water. This is a fun one. This is a song that I had a lot of fun writing. This one, I forget if it came together fast or not. Like, I think this was one of the faster tracks that I put together. I love this song. I love this song so much. This is, like, if I had to pick a single from this album, it would either be Reflection, because Reflection is largely, like, a very stereotypical Return to Life song. Like, it has all the various, you know, bells and whistles that I think would set the scene for what you can expect from this album. Fake Beach, though, is, I think, the most fun I had making a song. The title of the track, so like the scene that I had in my mind, is actually from a Doom mod map. Maybe you've heard of it. It's myhouse.wad. If you've heard of it, you're like rolling your fucking eyes. You're like, oh, it's myhouse.wad. And if you've never heard of it, then go watch the video. There's a video by a guy called like The Most Terrifying Doom Mod or something along those lines, which is like an hour and a half long video that kind of plays through the map, but also goes through all of the supporting documentation, because there's a whole like Google Doc worth of materials that kind of go along with this mod map. But one, without spoiling too much, there is an ending where like you can't leave this room. Like, this is an ending of the run where you as the player end up on a beach, and the moment that you end up at this beach, you kind of realize that the scenery around you is still very white. Like, you have the water, but there's no sky. It's just water. And then you walk around the room that you're in, and you realize that all of the grass, like all of the, basically all of the textures. So the water is a screen, and then all like the grass around you is just little movie set props. And behind all these props, there is a little stereo that plays the sound of the water. And so you are kind of trapped forever in this very liminal kind of fake movie set. And I kind of imagined a place like that being where a party at the end of the world happens. And this is another one of those mad about shit songs. And this is me being a very jaded and angry elder Gen Zer who has come to the realization that my generation is utterly fucked. Like, this is me just being mad about that. But like, I'm an engineer, man. Like, I have a fucking engineering degree from the University of Toronto, might I add. Like, this is, at least as far as like the country of Canada is concerned, a pretty well-respected diploma. I am gonna die a renter. The complete and utter inaccessibility of just the anything market, like the way that society has been structured, makes me so hopeless. And that is really what the vibe that this song captures. One of my favorite lyric lines, not the two that I think are the best, but the as days go by, ambitions fade, and dying seems like fun. That line was so fucking funny. It wrote itself. Like, I was like, I'm like, this is so edgy. This is such an edgy line, but it just sort of happened. And it was around this time that this is like also very strange, seemingly unrelated lore. But this is around the time that a few of the streamers that I watch, for me, like, I've had 3 monitors since forever. I've had two monitors at my PC since 2016, and I've had 3 monitors since like right around COVID time. For me, my left monitor permanently 24/7 is a Twitch monitor, where I just have it to be like white noise so that I don't sit alone with my thoughts, because my thoughts are scary and I don't like them. And like several streamers all at the same time were playing Class of '09, which is like an exceptionally edgy visual novel game. And the main character of the first, I think there's 3 now, but the main character of the first 2 Class of '09 games is a girl named Nicole, and her whole thing is like being edgy. Like, she just has the most edgy response to any sort of situation. And this was me just for a moment being very Nicole brained. I was like, yeah, dying seems like fun in this scenario. Like, fuck, man. So that's largely what the song's about. This song, actually, I don't think it has any callbacks. I think this is one that was just kind of there. The first guitar, the verse guitar riff, just like the da-do, do-do-do, that was me ripping off like the vibe that right around that time Silent Planet was falling into. I am a huge fan of old Silent Planet, like around the Everything Was Sound era. For me, their newer music just doesn't hit quite the same, but I do find it almost hilarious to just play like ones and zeros on like an open E string and just make that the main riff of a song. I don't do it a lot on this album because, again, like, I want to at least pretend to have some level of creativity. But for this particular song, I was like, fuck it, ones and zeros, let's go. Let's just do stupid shit. This one is drop D. So Reflection was C sharp. We Were Always Here is E standard. This is drop D. Then party section. One of 2 solos on this album. That noise is me playing Behind the Bridge. This is a very stupid Thal riff. Fucking mood, bestie. I love that little keyboard thing. It's so simple, but like it's such a vibe. Guys, come on. Let's figure this out. Talking to my cats right now. Oh, also, these chords are ripped from a Silent Planet song. It's one of the tracks on Super Bloom. I forget which one. But there's a song that ends with these chords specifically. That's what I'm ripping off here. There's a vocal harmony at the start of this chorus that I think is really, really cool. It's very buried in the mix, but like singing that harmony in isolation is really cool. One thing I knew going into this track is that I wanted it to be stupid, but then chill. I wanted kind of like a half and half, like a dark and light kind of vibe. And so I knew going into the song that I wanted like this chill bit at the end, but actually writing the chill bit, this is another one of those sections that I was like very, very proud of. I love this outro so much. Da, 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 da. I think I played this guitar lead on a 7-string. If I ever get to perform this song live, this is around the time where I would go fucking apeshit. Alright, Yellow Line time. This song is my Sleep Token ripoff for the album. It's basically moaning into a mic over a piano and then distorted guitars. In fact, the demo for this song is an entire half step higher. And I guess I'll pause it here. I don't know why I had decided to originally write it in the key that I did. I think it was because it would have been more playable on the guitar. So like this was also originally a drop D song. However, the chords that I used for the piano part, it's almost impossible to tell right now just based on this particular piano section. But it becomes very, very obvious at the end of the song when the little like ghost piano comes back at the end. These are the exact same chords that I used for the very start of Pursuit. Like the first thing that I ever wrote that was return to life material was those piano chords that play during Sunrise, and that are also the foundation of Sentiment. This song is like a huge callback to all of that. Like the piano chords during the verses, as well as that outro. And the outro is like note for note exactly the same as the Sunrise intro. In fact, for this particular, so for the song itself, I used the piano plugin is Native Instruments, the Maverick. I like the way the Maverick sounds. It has like a very it's got a particular timbre to it that I like, because it doesn't sound like a studio piano. It doesn't sound like a pop piano. It has a bit of character to it. Like it sounds almost out of tune to some capacity, and I like that. But the outro is back on the Giant, which was the very first piano plugin I ever had on any of my music. In fact, all of the piano that is on Pursuit is the Giant. In fact, I'll confess to it now, I was using a pirated version of the Giant back then. I have like an actual, I own all the plugins that I used for this album, as well as Esoteric. There's nothing pirated on Esoteric either. But yeah, so this is me kind of really like pushing it that like this is just Sunrise again. This song, contextually, I think you can sort of tell from the lyrics what the song is about. It's based in those nighttime drives when you really are alone with your thoughts. Like whenever the music that the music that you're listening to is ending or is kind of quiet and not drowning out the thoughts and whatever. And sometimes you see one of those fucking F-150s with the stupid fucking LEDs like driving in the opposite direction, and you just want to it's the call of the void. Sometimes like it's, I guess largely metaphorically speaking, this is a call of the void song. It's me kind of battling with the idea of like, it really is the tiniest of decisions. And yet I can't let it happen. Which is why the last little bit of the song, the outro, is but I can't become a statistic, I can't become a statistic, I won't become a statistic, I won't become a statistic. Like I'm really just hammering that in there. Like I can't let this happen. And the reason why I've used the word statistic is because of the constant rhetoric about the trans suicide rate. And I refuse to be part of that number, because it is so, especially by people that are transphobic, it is used so staggeringly out of context and like very intentionally in bad faith. Because in a country like America, especially in red states, so many kids are driven into depression and self-harm and suicide by the environment that they are forced to grow up in. And then it's like, oh yeah, they're all just mentally ill. Like, I could go on this tangent, but I'm gonna stop myself right now. But that's why this statistic to me is such a fucking nightmare to think about. And that's kind of what the shit pisses me off aspect of this particular song is. So yeah, that's basically what this one is about. The other thing I'll mention, and it'll come up as we get to the outro, but this is the first of 4 instances of the 4/2/8/2/2 rhythm, which is April 28th, 2022, which was the day that I started HRT. And so it wasn't an intentional decision for this to happen 4 different times. For album number 4, it just so happened to be that way, so it's a very neat coincidence. But yeah, the outro, the like guitar chugging is in a pattern of 4, then 2, then 8, then 2, then 2. And also because between the demo and the final takes, I dropped the whole song down by a semitone to like match Sunrise 1 for 1. This is the weird song that's in a different tuning from everything. It is drop D, a half step down. So it's like, it's like D flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B flat, E flat. Okay, this is the G major chord, B minor chord, E minor chord. That's the 3 chords that are the Sunrise chords. Oh yeah, in the background here is We Were Always Here, We Were Always You. So the We Were Always Here part is obviously the title of the second track, and We Were Always You is lyrics from The Inevitable. That's the callback here. This little acoustic drum intro is from My Own Summer. Tupa. Here comes the rhythm. 4/2/8/2/2. And Sunrise chords. How cute. All right, I'm gonna pause the recording. I'm going to go feed the cats, and I'll come back and I'll hopefully finish this album. So, BRB, intermission. All right, we're back. And we're back for Kin. I fucking hate this song. Not that I hate the song, but I hated writing it because I was very much compelled to write it. And so if me being trans was the first cat out of the bag, for people that don't know me, the second cat out of the bag is the fact that I am originally from Russia. I've been in Canada. I've been living here since 2004, the winter of 04-05, I believe. But the actual, like, where I was born and raised is in Russia. I was born in a small town on the Black Sea coast called Tuapse. This town has since been bombed by Ukrainian drones because it is a very central industry hub in the Russian southwest. And I spent the first, 7 years of my life in Moscow. And so, Kin, given, the title, is me discussing that part of myself. It's the fact that I sit here in, across an ocean from where I'm originally from, living in this strange, hard to grasp reality that had my life panned out in a slightly different way, had my parents not made the decision to emigrate here, I would very likely have been a fighter in this war. My life generally would have played out so much different. And so there's that element of it, and then there's the element of just my family. Because the only people that are actually here in Canada with me are my, immediate family. My parents and my one sister. Everyone else is still back home. And besides those who have, passed from old age and the various things that can happen to you when you're older. And to my knowledge, the one aunt that I lost to COVID, the rest of my extended family is still over there right now. And the problem is that I don't talk to them very much. And it's not that I don't want to. It's the fact that it is day by day getting progressively harder for me to do that. And so this song kind of tackles it. It attacks two birds with one stone, metaphorically. So it discusses the nature of, me always being asked. It's like, well, what do you think of the war? And it's like, man, I fucking hate war. I think the countries that start wars should stop. And I think that people that kill other people should fucking stop. If you know me in real life, you know that I'm a very risk-averse person. I hate conflict. I hate fighting. And so to me, war and all this stupid and pointless killing of people is just so beyond, obscene. And it's the fact that, the country that I am from, the place where I didn't choose to be born but was, is the one that fucking started this, is such a source of, inherent shame that I can't ever seem to get rid of fully. I know that as someone who hasn't lived in Russia since 2004 and someone who hasn't been there since 2009, I don't have an influence on what the government chooses to do. It's not my decision to, go and bomb civilians or whatever. That's not, my fault. But there's an inherent, cultural stigma that comes from the knowledge of the fact that that's where I'm from, that kind of perpetually just kind of exists in my life. And again, I am very blessed to be geographically where I am now and not be dealing with the more immediate effects of this pointless conflict. And then the other bird that this stone tries to kill is the fact that I don't talk to my family because they wouldn't accept me. Even with my immediate family, like my parents, having the whole like trans discussion with them was so weird, because thankfully even they, as people that were born in 1960s Soviet Union, even they are capable of change. Like, their outlook on society has changed quite a lot in the last 20 years that they've been here. But even then, to them, I'm still their son, and that kind of hurts. But I sort of just live with it because, again, I don't like fights. I don't want to have this conversation over and over again. And also because it doesn't really, on a physical level, affect my day-to-day to know that that's still who they think I am, and, how they refer to me when talking to family and stuff. But at least they're slightly more chill about it now than they would have been 20 years ago. That's for sure, 100%. But the rest of my family, the ones that live in Russia, if I came out as either bi or trans, back home, they just fucking kill me. I'd be dead. I'd either be dead or in prison then dead. Like, it's... And having to live with that is so fucking dumb. And that is, like, the main reason as to why I don't talk to them, because I don't want to confront that reality anymore. And more people in my extended family are leaving the world. And there's this very real reality that these are all people that, at least through some sort of like biological means, I have a connection to, whether I like it or not. Like, they are family to me. Like, I we are very instinctual creatures, and it is in my instinct and everyone's instinct to protect their family and to care about them. And so it sucks that these are people that I never even get a chance to say goodbye to anymore, because I can't talk to them. And so that is the message behind this song. And I think that out of all the tracks on this album, Kin is the most heartfelt one. This is the one that, again, like, that's why I said that I fucking hate this song, because it's actually a difficult track for me. As far as the music goes, there's a few like really cool elements in this one as well. So one of them is that the guitar riff at the very start is very much a nod to Thornhill, specifically Leather Wings. That like very... that kind of idea of just like a very loopy guitar riff, that is just a nod to Thornhill. And the irony is that I actually, for a time in my life, lived in Thornhill, Ontario. So I kind of have that connection. But yeah, so that's very much where that gets taken from, and it's also kind of like what drove the drum pattern for like the dun, 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 dun. That section also very Thornhilly. So that's where the song started. But then it develops into a bridge that I absolutely love. I think the Kin bridge is another one of those like big highlights for me on this album. In fact, if I had to, I think, pick one musical moment that I am the most proud of, it would be Kin Bridge. Just the way that it starts, almost out of nowhere. Like, it randomly goes from like this C sharp, or back in C sharp again, this like almost machine gun riff, and then suddenly just becomes this D major dreamy thing, is really cool to me. And that's the kind of writing thing that I can't explain. It just happened. I was just writing, and that's how it played out. And I'll mention this when we get there, but there's the second of two lyric lines that I am really, really proud of on this album is also in this track. And then out of nowhere, I love that. I love that so much. This vocal melody, I fucking love so much as well. This whole verse, this whole bridge, I love this section. One thing that's about to happen in this bridge chorus, if you will, is that lyric line, the really dumb lyric line that I love so much, and it's but I start to loathe the talks between the buried and myself, because the chords that were kind of the inspiration behind this bridge are from Loathe, A Sad Cartoon, and from BT Bam's Life in Velvet, I think it is. Wow, 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 wow. And we back. I like the little guitar lick as well. The bum 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 bum. And then this chorus is a big callback to Collapse from Pursuit. In fact, it is almost inaudible, but I'll point out when it happens. But that melody that the synth plays at the start of Collapse is happening in 5. Right about now. And now we slow it down. Now we get to this piece of shit of a song. Why do I write 10-minute songs? I don't know. Before I even let it go, I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote this. I don't even think I was trying to write a 10-minute song, but there was some part of me that because I was listening to Catch 33 at the time quite a lot. I fucking love Catch 33. Record Store Day, by the way, is right now it's Sunday, it's almost Monday. Record Store Day is this coming Saturday. I'm lining up early because I want the stupid fucking 20-year Catch 33 remaster. I need the vinyl so bad. I have so much shit that I need to spend money on this summer, and I'm still... I can't stop buying vinyls, man, and this one is important to me. I need it. Anyway, there's a part of me that wanted like a very, very slow burn, kind of in the vein of some Meshuggah tracks. One that comes to mind is I Am Colossus, where it takes like half the song's runtime to actually get to like the heavy part. And so that, I think, is what was in the back of my mind as far as what I wanted this song to feel like. I really wanted it to feel like we're building for like 4 minutes and then finally something hits. So that, I think, is the origin of this song. This is we're back in standard E. Let's see, what else is notable? Most of this song is in 7. There are some sections that go back into 4/4, but the vast majority of this song is in 7. In fact, one of the things that kind of perpetually goes on through the verses, and even, I don't even know what the chorus is. There's no fucking verses and choruses in this song. But one thing that happens is a constant pattern of 7 that even in the parts that are supposed to be felt as 4 continue as loops of 7 underneath that. And so you might hear like the bass in the verse and then the kick drum that follows it, the da 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 da, the 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 da 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 da. That is just like perpetually continuing throughout like a lot of this song. That's one of the ideas that drives it a little bit in the right direction and keeps it from sounding like it's all just the same. What else is worth mentioning about this one? I hate this song. This is the song that I had to put down and like stop the rewrite of this album with. Right. Thematically, it's about this existential horror of being alive, almost. I sometimes find myself on nights like this, where I am once again alone with my thoughts, just pondering the sheer stupidity of the fact that I am here right now. And if you really think about it, like if you take that statement of I am here right now and dissect that into the various elements of what make that statement true, you start to enter like cosmic horror territory, where it's so for context, I'm religiously agnostic, so like I don't necessarily believe in a god and in a heaven or a hell, but I'm also like open to being convinced that this is true if I'm presented with what I believe to be sufficient evidence. Like if you showed me God, I'll be like, yeah, okay, fair enough. But I guess for the time being, I'm more on like the atheist side, where I think spiritually our human existence is an act of defiance against the universe. And in a universe where ultimately nothing matters, our existence on this earth and in this world is us trying to find meaning in the meaningless. It's the fact that, like, I know that one day I will die, and then when this happens, the lights will just turn off. Like, I'll no longer be able to feel anything. I won't be able to be sad about the fact that I'm dead, because if you try remembering like what life was like before you were born, you can't. You have no memory of it. Like, I won't be able to perceive the time that spans from, you know, me dying to the universe dying. And it's so fucking crazy to me that out of all the times I could have been born, out of all the various species of animal that I could have been, it just so happens that instead of being alive when the earth was in its infancy and being like a single cellular organism at the bottom of the ocean, or being one of the first animals to like walk out of the water and being in this barren wasteland of a rock, because ultimately Earth, before like all the plants and shit grew on it, was just a rock. Like there was nothing. It was literally a rock. Instead of being alive at a time like that, I happen to be alive in the year 2026 after Christ, with all of the various like fundamental understandings of, very limited, might I add, of the universe and my role within it. And before I get too sidetracked, that is what this song is about. It's about like the sheer absurdity of our seemingly pointless and meaningless existence, and trying to find a way to reason with that and to do literally anything. Even though I know that, you know, I could literally do anything. Out of all the things that I'm humanly capable of doing, I could try to do a backflip right now. I would fail, but I could try. I could start speaking in French. I won't, but I could. But like, you know what I mean? None of these things ultimately would even equate to a speck of sand on an infinite beach that is our universe. The universe doesn't give a fuck. Like, even if we as humans feel like our life is significant, the universe doesn't care. It is far too vast and expansive to even remotely give a shit about us. Like, we are, in the cosmic timeline, so insignificant that even though we will be the reason why our planet dies, no one will care. No one will care. There's obviously, it's a non-zero chance that we do ever get discovered by like a different alien species somewhere out there, if there even is one. Again, these chances are non-zero, but like the odds are so high that even if there is a civilization at some point in space-time, not now, maybe in the past or in the future, in some habitable corner of the universe, that they will never find out that we existed. And it's like, man, that kind of, it's a weird feeling to have to come to terms with. And so that's what this song's about. that's what this one's about. And also the second half of this album, or not this album, the second half of this song is just the absolute most stupid, like the closest I feel like as an artist I've ever come to a shameless and like intellectually absent ripoff of a piece of music. The second half of this song is that. Like, the closest I think I have ever and may ever come to doing that. Because it is... It is the exact same chords in a different key, but it's the exact same chords as the Contortionists' Ebb and Flow, and I literally just... I sit on that, and I use the fucking lyrics from that song. Also, Dance Through the Night, Laugh Through the Pain, that's a callback to earlier in the album. That's a Fake Beach with Plastic Water callback. And then We Are About Observers again, that's kind of foreshadowing Observer. Anyway, if you listen to the kick drum, this is in 7. Dun 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 dun. I like this little lick. That one too. This section that's coming up is a callback to The Heart of the Earth. That little synth melody. With different chords in the background. These piano chords are kind of a foreshadowing of the outro of this song. Fun fact, Heart of the Earth isn't even the first time that this particular little synth melody appeared. In an album that predates Return to Life. This album will never see the light of day. I wrote a song called Zero, and on that album, the guitar plays those notes, the do-da-do, do-da-do. That's where I stole that melody from. And so Heart of the Earth was already a callback, and so this is a callback to a callback. And this is the part of the song where we are now almost 5 minutes in, where it actually feels like we're getting somewhere. Five, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One syllable, one vowel. And this is where I knew I needed to transition from the C sharp minor that a lot of that like final little bit sat in to the actual key, which would need to be G sharp minor and then E major. So this whole bridge just serves as like a way for me to change keys. That's all this is. But I do like this bridge, this little ambient bit. I like it. Oh, there's the key change. And this is where the ebb and flow ripoff begins. Da da da, da da da, da da da, da da da. The second instance of the 4-2-8-2-2 rhythm is coming up. Da 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 dum, ba bum, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum. The vocals here, I won't spoil what they mean, but this is something. It's something that I'm working on. Let's leave it at that. And just to really hammer it home, drift with the ebb and flow, sink in the ebb and flow. Just fuck off, man. And I'm talking to myself when I say that. And then, as like a wake-up call, straight from that, we go into probably the most like Oonga Boonga stupid metal song I've ever written. That is just stupid riffs. That is just angy, for lack of a better word. That's all this shit is. That's all Do No Wrong is. I don't know what it was specifically about the Uvalde shooting that really made me want to do a song about gun violence in America. But that specific story is what this song is about. That's all that I think is worth mentioning. I don't think there's anything like as far as callbacks in this one either. Let me just double check the lyrics. Nope. I think I think this one, we can just let her go. This one is just really, really stupid. One thing I'll mention is that I am so glad that I tabbed this song out when I wrote it, because figuring out this guitar part by ear would have been impossible. There are so many split harmonies that are like a fret apart, where in the context of the mix, it's just designed to be noise. That having to figure out what I played, I would have been so screwed. There's also a particular riff that's going to happen in the guitars. It sounds kind of like a do-do-do-do-do-do-do. That riff has the exact same shape as the riff for Primal Directive, which is a Contortionist song. Just again, different tuning, and also the tail end of the riff is different. But the do-do-do-do-do-do, that is very much just ripped off from that. In the same way that on the Inevitable from Esoteric, there is a riff that, for the first little bit of it, is note for note the same as Between the Buried and Me's Backwards Marathon. So not the first time I've just ripped a riff off either. The triple inhale. This riff.
Come down into the dark and face your own reflection.
I guess one thing that I'll point out, context-wise, that I didn't mention, is that, so, the first half of this album, I think, including in the grand scheme of things, maybe not, I wrote while unemployed again. I think I mentioned that I got fired from that job in August of 2023, and it wasn't until February of 24 that I had full-time work again. But the last couple months, so from like February through May of 2024, that is when, like, instead of just having all the time in the world, like, if I ever get either motivation or inspiration to work on music, I could just do it. The writing for the last third of this album is gonna sound and feel a little bit different, because by nature it was me kind of writing when I could. I was just trying to make better use of my time. Also, I do realize that the proper past tense of the word weep is wept. I use the word weeped instead because I think it sounded better, and there's been times in my lyrical history that I've used silly words because they sound better. Like, arriving to conclusions, even though arriving at conclusions is more grammatically accurate. I've done shit like that before. But yeah, it's why the last few songs in this album sound a little bit more manic than the first few, because I just had more constraints as far as time to get this stuff done. Especially when I started the job that I got in February of 24. I was also spending a lot of my day commuting. Like, I think 4 hours of my day was just the commute. And so I was very tired and very devoid of motivation all the time. And so these songs are kind of a product of that, unfortunately. Not in the sense that... Also, yes, Unga Boonga, saturation maxing. Not in the sense that I think that the quality of the product is any worse. Like, I obviously still sat with these songs for a while and really made sure that I was happy with them, but in a way that could explain the difference in direction, like why the last 25-ish minutes of this record sound different from the first 35. It's because just my conditions had changed. You know, I was living with a different schedule. And so for me, just, you know, everything kind of changed. And so the way that I was writing had changed as well. That's really the explanation. It's not an excuse. It's not me saying, oh yeah, these songs fucking suck. It's more so just like they're different because a lot of time had already elapsed. Like, we've gone now chronologically from September of 23 into like March of 24. Like, even in that little time span, I was a different person. Like, and I was writing different things. But I was still very much committed to, you know, finishing this album. Growing Pains is probably the most like jammy of the songs. It's the one that I kind of just wrote and kind of let it write itself. It was just me strumming some chords. This, if there was a Deftones ripoff on this album, it'd be Growing Pains. The chords in the verse are just the chords from Bloody Cape. That's all that is. It's why the vocal delivery is so moany on Growing Pains. It's very like that is a very like intentional creative choice to really lean into the Chino Moreno moaning into the mic meme. And it's also why even the heavy riffs on the song are so simple, because honestly, I really respect something that genuinely fascinates me about not just Deftones, but a lot of bands that are on the more, I want to say, popular end of the music that I listen to. Like, I don't listen to, I don't even know like which songs right now are near the most listened. Like, I don't fucking, if you think about like clicks on Spotify, I know that Gangnam Style was the first song to break 1 billion listens on YouTube or whatever. But like, none of that music, like the music that has billions of listens, is stuff that I listen to a lot. And so Deftones are really that band for me that are the big band. Obviously, I also listen to shit like Metallica and System of a Down and Korn, like bands that obviously broke out of the niche metal sphere and into the broader context of society. But there's something about all of those bands, like everything. So one thing they share in common is that they do a lot with a little, and some of the best songs and most well-known songs in their respective discographies are ones where the instrumental parts are so simple. How the entire chorus for a song like Swerve City by Deftones is just it's just that over and over again. Like, there isn't anything more to it, and yet just based on the context of that riff and the vocals that are on top of it, that song is so instantly recognizable. And there's a lot of that, and so I feel like that was me trying to get a slice of that pie into this album. Me trying to fit triangle into circle hole, basically. So yeah, that's why this song sounds the way that it does. The back half of it is weird. I don't know why the back half of Growing Pains is the way it is. I just know that it happened very fast. This song wrote itself. Like, it just sort of happened. I think over like a day or two on a weekend. I think it was like a Saturday and a Sunday where in the span of maybe 6 to 8 hours in the studio, the song went from non-existing to being done. I also know that the guitar harmonics at the end were me just strumming notes. And then because I still had the track armed for recording from me, like tracking the actual part of the song that had already existed. I just sort of kept it, and it sounded good enough that I was like, yeah, whatever. That seems like a cool way to end the song. As far as topic, this one's also pretty straightforward. It's about the us and them mentality. It's about the perpetual way that we as people are divided and controlled. And this makes me sound like such a conspiracy theorist. This is like, oh, the secret cabal, the Illuminati that run the world want us to believe that 9/11 was a terrorist attack and wasn't an inside job. Like, that's not really what this is. This is more just like me observing the fact that the whole reason why we have things like the two-party system in America is to get people to fight each other so that there is always an enemy that you can emotionally manipulate people into fighting against. Where in countries like America, people will vote against their best interests just because they feel like there's this enemy that has to be destroyed. Where American farmers will actively vote against their best interests just because they believe the Democrats are going to, like, destroy the country or whatever, even though it is literally the current Republican government that deported half their fucking workforce and the same government that provides bigger and bigger subsidies to the mega farms like the McDonald's of the world, to the point where so much of the farming industry subsidy goes into these mega farms that intentionally don't produce anything because it leads to larger subsidies, that all of the money, like all of the taxes that these actual real working farmers pay, don't go back into their pockets, and yet this is what they voted for, and they don't realize it. And it's like, it's so stupid. The title of the song is also a bit of a meme because it comes from like transitioning, and for me, because I'm going from like I'm on feminizing hormones. The growing pains is from when your boobs grow. But it also kind of like leans into the growing pains of like society, how, you know, as society develops, there's some growing pains to work through. I like this little part. This part really is just so simple. It's just A, G, D, E. A minor, G major, D major, E minor. I like that little vocal harmony in the background. And then the big power outro. And we immediately go into Silver Tears, which in my mind was a very needed reprieve. Before the chaos that is the final track, Silver Tears I think is in a perfect spot on the album. This song, before we get there, was so hard for me to write. I am so much better at just writing stupid guitar-driven tracks, where the moment that you take that instrument away from me, yes, this song's about you, bro. Yes, it's about you. Get out of here. Get out of here. Little buddy. Little fella. Look at this guy. I know you can't see him, but he's looking at you. Uh-huh. Oh yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to add? No? Alright, I'm gonna continue. Anyway, Silver Tears was kind of another Beggar-esque song in the sense that I wanted a song that just wasn't metal. And for the first time ever, I mean, not necessarily ever, this song's like Echo in my discography, or like Sunrise. It is a track that just never becomes heavy. It is a track that just exists to be the chill little, cute little song that it is. And there's never a twist of like, oh, there's screaming in this one. And as I've already mentioned, this one is about Silver, about the Cato. So there isn't really anything more to it as far as like the lyrics go. I know that the lyrics make an Emerald Skies callback, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know what that fucking line means. With every new reprise of Shimmering Emerald Skies, I don't know what that line means. It just happened. Sometimes you just write things and you don't know what they mean. And this is one of those times where if you ask me, it's like, yeah, what's the meaning of this line? I'm like, I have no idea, man. So, yeah, but the rest of the song I feel like is fairly straightforward lyrically. Golden Eyes is because his eyes are yellow. He is one of the yellow-eyed cats of this world. Let's see. What else? The fun thing about this song is, I think when I had just started writing it, I was listening to Devin Townsend Ghost again. And Ghost is such a good album. And if you're someone who's like a metal listener and you've never tried to listen to Deconstruction immediately followed by Ghost, you're missing out. It's such an ethereal experience to be released from the sheer chaos that is Deconstruction and the way Poltergeist just ends, and then immediately be thrown into Ghost. It's such a magical experience, and so to me that album means quite a lot. And so this little piano bit at the start, instead of it being in C major, is in E major, but this little piano bit is like almost note for note a ripoff of Feather from Ghost. And then to really drive the point home, the first lyric line, I know that like officially the lyric is "Hey little one" on Feather, and on my version of on Silver Tears it's "Hey there little one." They sound the same. To me they sound the same. They have the same cadence. So that's what this song's like origin is. It is Devin Townsend Project Feather. And it is convenient. It wasn't by design that Growing Pains ended in E, so that this song could just flow straight out of it. But it is convenient that happened. that wasn't like a calculated track flowing into track situation. In fact, Silver Tears was a track that I started writing very early on, like sometime around where Yellow Line would be. Like, I think immediately after Fake Beach is when I started writing Silver Tears. The final track, actually, in my demo project files, is track 3. And so the original version of Observer was supposed to sit... There's also a cute little, hey there, little one, little harmony in the sides there. But yeah, Observer was originally sitting in the 3rd track slot for this album, but I had an idea for what I wanted that song to be, and it wasn't going in that direction, which is why I stopped, put it away, and then started again with like a similar-ish vibe, but different context. There is actually like about a minute and a half of the original Observer that survived. That are an interesting listen now. So I'm just a little bit distracted by the music. It's a cool song. There's going to be a synth that in the section that's coming up is going to move from like right to left and do like a do 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 do. In, I think the name of this thing, I have that as like Minecraft synth in the project file. That just sounds like it's straight from the Minecraft OST. I'm going to be honest, I had no idea what I was doing during this transition. I knew that I just wanted like a wall of noise that the cute little outro would kind of emerge from. And for the first time in Return to Life history, we have an acoustic guitar. Technically a nylon guitar, but it's not electric, which is the part that matters. And it feels very strange that an album that has a song like We Were Always Here has a song like Silver Tears on it as well. I think that's part of the, I don't want to say the magic of Return to Life, but that is like a very core component of the identity of who I am as a music writer. And now we get into Observer, and this is another war song, except this one I started writing, the reason why I started writing it when I did is because this is a song about, originally, it was about the Palestinian genocide. However, in the years that have passed since me starting to write that song and it actually being released, a lot of other wars have been started for no fucking reason. And so I actually redid a couple lyric lines to make it a little bit more vague, in the sense that the song can be applied to anywhere in the world. But the origin of this song is that it is just the relentless bombing of Palestine. And the fact that I can't seem to, for any good reason, understand why this is happening. It is about feeling powerless as an observer of this heinous shit that my species does and that I can't stop. That really is what it is. And I feel like it's the kind of song that feels right to end this album with, because it leans into that aspect of, it's shit that makes me mad, but it's also shit that I can't do anything about. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of the problems that the various songs on this record talk about are things that I am merely an observer of. It's things that I can't change. Like, I can't change that trans people are being eradicated from society in America. I can't change the fact that my generation feels hopeless about not just our economic futures, but about just the future of the planet in general. I can't change the fact that I am from a country that started a war and kills innocent people. And even the fighters, even the soldiers there in that war are people that didn't want to be there. And so to me, they're just civilians with guns. Like, it's like, I can't change the fact that my actions in the greater context of the universe are entirely meaningless. I can't change the fact that police stood outside of a school with an active shooter and refused to enter and intervene while kids were literally being shot. I can't change the fact that we as a society are being politically divided just so that we're easier to control. And I can't change the fact that for some strange reason, people that seemingly have nothing better to do just want to start wars in the Middle East. That's really what this is about. This song has a lot of callbacks to Reflection, because that's kind of why I put the stupid little slashes into the tracks, because they are musically very reflective of each other. There's a lot of things that happened in Reflection that will happen in Observer again through some sort of context. So that's part of what happens in this song. We'll just get it started. Before we do get started, this is a very Loathe-inspired track. This track, the vibe I was going for at the start was very much an I Let It In and Took Everything title track feeling. I wanted that eerie, almost hopeless vibe from this one. That's really what I was going for. In my tabs, I have this marked as the Knocked Loose riff. And this is where the callbacks to Reflection begin. This is from that heavy bridge. Same melody as Through the Waning Roses. Lonely Spirits Wander On. Ooh, the 4-2-8-2-2 rhythm. Dun 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 dun. That's also definitely not the melody from that music from Up. Okay, it's not. It's definitely not. Title drop incoming. Boom. There it is. That's a callback to Reflection. And that's a callback to Growing Pains. And also that was the fourth time that the 4-2-8-2-2 rhythm happened. And just because I was such a fan of the first time the Cloud Kicker section happened, I brought it back. I almost kind of knew that that's how I wanted to end the album. And so this is really what we were building towards. This is 1 hour worth of music is all for this. And it's twice as long as the version on Reflection, which was already twice as long as the originally written version. And you might be able to hear those same octaves in the piano as the start of the album. I don't know if you could consider this to be the album ending where it began. Kind of. It gives that vibe to some degree, I guess. But this doesn't have the same vibe as the very intentional way that Pursuit ended where it began. But also that one was a little bit different context-wise, even though they both ended on a G-flat major chord. The way this one ends isn't exactly a cycle. It's where we were, but different. And I guess that also kind of plays into the whole observer-reflection dynamic. The fact that it's the same, but different. You know, so yeah, this is a body of work that really is 3 years in the making. I mean, the music itself was 9 months in the making, but the final product, the whole vision behind it was a long time for me. For me, I sat on this music for way too long. Like this album should have been done years ago. And yet it wasn't, because I really did want to be happy with the final product. And so this is genuinely a really big moment for me, to be able to say that, hey, it's done. Finally, 4 years later, not exactly 4, but 3.5 years later, we're getting something. We're getting more music. And this has finally unlocked the door for me to explore what album 5 may or may not become, and potentially what may or may not have been hinted with the lyrics at the end of track 6. But it will most certainly be a concept album, 100%. We're going back. I've had enough of this conceptless shit. I need to be told what to write. So I guess we'll spoil that much. But yeah, it is now after midnight. I started recording this video almost 3 hours ago. So it's about time. I wasn't originally going to do essentially what ended up being a one-taker, but I like having the more natural and unfiltered thoughts on all the music. I really do hope that if you are still here at this point in the video, that you enjoy this music and that you can at least connect to some part of it, that it feels like the music speaks to some part of you. That feels like such a self-indulgent thing to say. It's like, oh yeah, I hope my music changes the world. It's like, nah, man. I just want to make music that means something. I don't want to just write songs that are just songs for the sake of being songs. I really was trying to, have this be music that means something to someone. And so if that is the case for you, then I am so happy, and I'm so grateful that that is what you got out of it. And I do hope to see each and every person that listens to my music in the future when I come back with more. Because Return to Life is a ride that doesn't end. We'll keep on returning. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you guys next time. This has been Anna Keeley, signing off.